I've got two entry-level 3D printers here, the Bambu Lab A1 and A1 Mini. If you've been thinking about getting into 3D printing and expanding your miniatures hobby, can one of these hot noodle deposition machines satisfy your requirements for speed, detail, and durability? We're going to put them to the ultimate test today and print a whole host of tabletop hobby stuff, from miniatures to terrain to gaming aids. We'll even do a texture roller. How well will this work? We'll push these machines to their limits for detail and see if they can give us a result worthy of our painting and gaming tables. This video is sponsored by no one. Come join me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and get yourself some sexy STL rewards and sleep like a baby at night knowing you are directly helping create videos just like this one. Okay, first things first. Let's push detail to the limits and find out just how far we can go before it's no longer practical. Because unlike resin 3D printing, every time we turn up the quality dial here, the print time is going to increase by a lot. And while I typically don't mind long print times, there does come a point where it gets a bit ridiculous and not worth it. The model I've chosen to print here is an Angelic Knight Dominator by Atlan Forge. These are some very highly detailed Space Marines, and I think will make for a great test model to compare the print profiles. What the fuck are print profiles? These, in my opinion, are the biggest selling point for these Bambu Lab printers, but I'm not going to get into it here. I recommend you watch my first impressions video of the Bambu Lab A1 and A1 Mini to understand more about the print profiles and why they're so exciting. For starters, I'll be using the A1 Mini printer with this matte blue PLA filament, and for all intents and purposes, both of these printers are functionally the same, other than their print volume. Now, despite these Bambu Lab printers coming with these beautiful, pre-tuned and calibrated profiles with really no technical knowledge needed from you, I do recommend, if you're thinking of getting into FDM printing, to at least spend the time to acquaint yourself with settings like infill, supports, top and bottom layers, and walls. Everything else though, I think it's safe to say you can happily ignore and just go with what's provided out of the box. So let's do just that. I picked some different parts for our Terminator that I liked the look of and organized them about the plate in the slicer. For all the settings stuff, I simply left it on the default profile and enabled supports, and that's it. Time to print. This print ended up taking just shy of 2 hours, which isn't too bad at all for a single Terminator. I think we could probably bang out a squad of 5 in a day, but how is the quality? Well, unfortunately, these default supports were a bit troublesome. Some came away easily, others though were challenging because they were completely wrapped around the parts, like this chainsword for example, which unfortunately just broke right off as I tried to get rid of the supports. This is an impressive print for an FDM printer for sure, but it's still got pretty noticeable layer lines, and I think we can do better. Let's switch over now to the 0.08 high quality profile, and we'll change the support type over to tree supports and give this another go. Checking on this print the next morning, it looks good. The tree supports held a bit firmer, perhaps, than the first type, but weren't too difficult to remove, and thankfully none of the parts broke this time. Chainsword, for example, was not completely encapsulated, and I was really surprised to see those tiny little teeth when peeling back these supports. Honestly, this is pretty mind-blowing. All we changed is a print profile and the support type, and we've got a pretty okay miniature here. The print time was more than double though, but hey, still maybe not a deal breaker. Let's press on now and see just how far we can take this. To do that though, we're going to need to swap out the nozzle. This here is a 0.2mm nozzle, which can simply be swapped into either machine's tool head without the need for any tools, which I think is pretty awesome. This did cost me an extra $12 though, so let's find out if it was worth the expense in our pursuit for detail. After recalibrating the machine and telling the slicer what I had changed, we've got now some new profiles to play with, going all the way down to 0.06mm layer height. I think we should start at the 0.08 though, and compare it to the 0.08 from the 0.4 nozzle. Before we take a look at the results though, if I may just take a second to compel you to come join my Patreon or buy me a coffee. I'm having the absolute time of my life making these videos for you, but I can't do it alone, and I need all the help I can get. And so I'm really glad to say that in return for your support, I can offer you an absolute wealth of miniatures and other tabletop gaming STLs for your printing enjoyment. Thanks to these legendary artists and studios from our community. Artificers Mini, Scoutsifer Studio, Dungeons and Dreadnoughts, Arcane Whiskers, Tractor Minis, Moid, Lucas with a C, Imp3D Sion, Atlan Forge, and of course Synergy Studio and Toady Design. There's a ton of STL files if you come join my membership. It's an insanely good deal, just saying. And like this month, there's some great exclusives. So if you're watching in the month of August 2024, come get them and get involved in our print and paint as well. You can take any of these models you want, print them up, paint them, and I'll show them off here on the channel later this month. If, however, you're watching this in the future, that's okay. There's also an excellent welcome pack that is just full to the brim of cool models, and those are available year-round all the time. Okay, thank you very much. Let's now take a look at those results. Now, this was a long print, clocking in at just under 9 hours for a single Terminator. For me, this is starting to push the limits a bit, but what do you think? Is this level of detail worth the wait? I'm certainly very impressed with the level of detail that we've been able to achieve here. Like, even though it's still not quite on the level of detail that resin printers can pull off, it's nevertheless pretty amazing, and of course completely usable for a game. If you look closely here on the back of these power fists, the little detail here, it's supposed to be a shield and 2 crossed swords. On the first print, you'd be forgiven for mistaking it for print artifacts, and then on the second, it looks kind of like random little dots. And on the most recent print, I think it's starting to become pretty clear what it's supposed to be. So it's looking like the 0.4 nozzle with the high quality profile is going to have the best balance of quality and print times, and the 0.2 nozzle is going to give you a nice little bump in quality at the expense of much longer print times. But we do have one last profile to play around with though, the 0.06 high quality profile. So let's do that. Now, chronologically, I did decide to do this print much later after printing a bunch of other stuff, and I had forgotten I left some high flow eSun PLA Plus in this machine when I started it. So this one is grey, and goddamn, it's beautiful. This did take a whopping 11 hours and 40 minutes to print, so unless you have the patience of a saint, which I do not, this may or may not be the print profile for you. For me personally, I was happy with the trade-off using the high quality profile on the 0.4 nozzle, and I even ran off a few more Terminators in Bamboo Lab Matte Red PLA. For fun, I also wanted to print a vehicle. This right here is a tank that you can get through my channel membership, sculpted by the very talented Synergy Studio. This was also printed on the A1 using the 0.4 nozzle and the high quality profile, and this is an absolutely beautiful result. I did run into one small issue where the supports became fused to the sides of the hull, which I think was because I'd placed them too close together in the slicer. But thankfully, with a bit of persuading, I was able to remove them and get those sides cleaned up and the tracks installed, but not before first accidentally slicing a finger open using that Bamboo Lab scraper tool. Blood for the blood god, I guess. The print quality here for vehicles is truly glorious, and you know what? The print times with this high quality profile on the 0.4 nozzle are really very similar to Gen 1 resin printers, the ones that had the RGB LCDs. Like, I remember it would regularly take me 15 plus hours to print something like this. And yeah, here this tank came in at 17 and a half. So a tank in under a day is a pretty fast tank, if you consider how long it would take if you bought one on Amazon or whatever. I also ran off some terrain using this same profile. Again, this is by Synergy Studio and is available to my channel members. Thank you, Mr. Synergy. And this turned out beautiful. This one's in Bamboo Lab Matte Black PLA, and it's crazy to me that even super fine details like these little pipes have rendered so cleanly. Here as well on the back of this tank, these little handrail things. Incredible. I think printing terrain and vehicles like this may just be the way to go versus resin, because resin is great for high detail figures, but often it can fall over when it comes to multi-part assemblies that rely on flat surfaces and straight lines. It can also result in hefty little tanks, whereas PLA is nice and lightweight and makes all the models feel just like store-bought plastic models in terms of weight. And because they are so lightweight, I feel a bit more confident dropping these on the floor than I do with, say, a fully resin-printed miniature, even though you can get some pretty incredible, durable resins these days for not too much money. The same model printed in resin will always be heavier unless you do a bunch of hollowing. And even then, you're not always going to get close. Going back to the A1 Mini with the 0.2 nozzle, I wanted to try and see if I could create a useful hobby tool by printing a texture roller. This one is created by Toady Design, and I sent it using the 0.08 high quality profile. The roller took about 17 hours to complete and came out a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. But does it work? Well, only one way to find out, and this gives me an excuse to finally try out some air dry clay that I bought a while ago. And oh my god, no one said this stuff smells so delicious. What is that, marzipan? Anyway, check that out. This is actually pretty damn awesome, and I ended up making a whole bunch of these bases. Super stoked with that. There's also a grass one, which I think we'll try another day. And yeah, both of these rollers and that tank available through my membership right now. Come get them. Finally, I ran off some gaming aids. This here is a Kill Team measuring gauge I found on Printables, and these tokens I got on MakerWorld. They were printed on the A1, again with the 0.4 nozzle, but this time I used a 0.28mm draft profile and made use of the automatic material system to do some filament changes. And again, super stoked with this. They look fantastic. And yeah, I'm in love with these printers. I think this is absolutely amazing. The results I've been able to achieve here without having to do a lick of tuning or calibrating or knowing anything about FDM printing on any sort of deep technical level. This, yeah, incredible. I'll leave links to where you can pick up these machines down in the video description. Those will be affiliate links, which will be a nice kickback to me if you decide to buy one. I do recommend it. These are the first FDM printers that I've used that I really feel like, they're the ones to get. It's always been a little bit less clear to me with other machines. But do go watch my other video first before you commit to any sort of purchase as a result of this one, please. Oh, and one more quick tip for you if you're going to take this plunge into FDM printing. The most important thing is how well the first layer adheres to the print bed. And the best way to assure consistent and excellent adhesion is by simply just wiping down the bed with alcohol between prints. If you've got some tips as well for the newbies, please leave them below in a comment. We're all new at some point, and it's not always easy to find all the information that you might need at the beginning, so your comment might just save someone a headache or two down the road. And finally, just huge shout out and thanks to all my channel members for making this possible, including the incredible studios and artists. So, alright, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you very much. Subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another cool 3D printing video. Yeah, what's the next one? I don't even remember. I forgot. How can I forget? I'm working on it in parallel. Which is going to be a resin video. Yeah, alright, cheers.